Okay, I'm going to go through a kind of a long problem of adding fractions. Okay, and just try to follow along, and you can pause it and rewind it as many times as you need to. All right, it won't be too long, but you might want to watch it a few times. So let's add the fractions 3, 4 plus, let's say, 5, 6. Okay, so two fractions. Okay, so first of all, they've got different denominators. Okay, and so we can't just add the fractions the way they're written. Okay, we're going to need a common denominator. Okay, and that's the thing that we've been working on. We need a common denominator. And the reason we need a common denominator is because when we add fractions that have a common denominator, we can just add the numerators straight. Okay? Because we're essentially representing quantities in the same way. It's like adding apples and apples. We can just count the apples. But if we add apples and oranges, you still have apples and oranges. So we need a common denominator. And one of the strategies that I showed you was to get common multiples between 4 and 6. And we made a list of these, right? So we made a list of the multiples of 4 and 6. And so the multiples of 4, starting with 4 times 1 is 4. Then we have 8. We have 12, we have 16, we've got 20, and so on. Okay, and these are small numbers, so I'm not going to look for too many multiples, and we do the same thing for 6. So 6 is a multiple of 6, we got 12, we got 18, and I already can see that there exists a common multiple. And what we typically want is the lowest common denominator, which is the least common multiple between 4 and 6. Okay, so that gives us our common denominator. Okay, so that's equivalent to a couple of fractions over 12. Okay, now here's the part that's tricky. Okay, so now we have our least common multiple, which becomes our common denominator. That's 12. Okay, but we must transform each one of these fractions into a new fraction that has the new denominator. Okay. And here's where the factor is important. Okay, in order to get a fraction over 12, the first fraction, we multiply 4 times 3, right? That's how we got that multiple. 4 times 3 equals 12. Okay? Now, when we multiply times a factor, remember the other video, the other lesson, when we multiply a fraction times a factor, we multiply both the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to multiply both, and what we get on top is a new number. That's 9. Okay? And that's what we got. So 3/4 is equivalent fraction to 9/12. And the factor that relates both of these is a factor of 3. Okay? 3 times the numerator and 3 times the denominator. Okay? And we're going to do the same thing with the next fraction. So the next fraction, how do we get that 12? Well, we multiply 6 times 2 to get 12. So if we multiply 6 times 2 to get 12, we also multiply the 5 times 2, and that gives us 10. Okay? So whatever factor, so let me just write this down at the bottom. So 5, 6 is equivalent to 10 12s. And the factor that makes them equivalent is a factor of 2. Okay? Just like the factor of 3 made the first fraction equivalent, a factor of 2 makes the second fraction equivalent to a fraction divided by 12. Okay? And that's how we get both of these fractions as fractions that are fractions of 12. Okay? Now that we have a common denominator, the next part is super easy. We just add the numerators, and that gives us an answer of 19 over 12. Okay? Please watch this video many times. Feel free to pause it, rewind it, okay? And I'll make another one just so you have a couple of examples.